If Noah hadn't stopped in that exact puddle under that exact bench on that exact rainy Thursday, the town would never have uncovered the truth. The boy didn't see a stray. He didn't see the matted fur, the bleeding paws, the ribs showing through the dirty coat. What 5-year-old Noah saw, what only a child with a broken heart could truly understand, was a loyal dog sleeping on a pair of muddy work boots like they were a lifeline. And somehow, in the way only a grieving child can, Noah understood what no one else did. "She's waiting for him," he whispered. "The boots? They were his." Noah's grandfather, Walter Patterson, 72 years old and tired in every part of his soul, squinted through the rain. All he saw was trouble. A large German shepherd under a bench in Jefferson Park, soaked through, guarding a pair of worn-out timberlands like a soldier at post. They should have walked away. They were just passing through after preschool. But what started as a detour turned into the unraveling of a story buried by silence, loss, and a betrayal no one saw coming. It had been nearly a year since Walter's daughter Sarah passed. Cancer took her fast, too fast. Now it was just Walter and Noah. He cooked folded laundry, made it to preschool pickup. He missed the army less than he missed the sound of Sarah's voice calling him Dad. That Thursday was soaked in fog and drizzle. Noah was in his favorite yellow boots, splashing joyfully, like the sky wasn't crying. Walter tried to keep the boy close to the umbrella low and his spirits up. But everything changed the moment Noah froze in his tracks and pointed. "Grandpa, look." Walter followed the boy's gaze. Beneath the bench in the shadows near an old oak tree was a dog. A big one. German shepherd, maybe. Curled up tight against a pair of boots, steel toe size 11, Walter guessed. She looked like death had forgotten to take her. "We should keep walking," Walter said. "She's not scary," Noah whispered, stepping forward. "She's sad." That's when Walter knew they were in trouble. The shepherd didn't move when they approached. Her eyes fluttered open, just a sliver enough to show exhaustion, not aggression. Her body was shaking, whether from cold starvation or heartbreak, Walter didn't know. "Can we help her?" Noah asked. He wasn't begging. He wasn't whining. He asked like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "She has nobody, Grandpa, just the boots, and they can't feed her." Walter swallowed hard. Sarah would have knelt beside the dog without a second thought. She was the kind of person who never hesitated. Animals, people, strangers, it didn't matter. If they were hurting, she acted. So that's what Walter did. He took off his jacket, wrapped it around the dog, and watched as the animal, despite her size and condition, rested her head against Noah's knee, like she'd been waiting for him all along. They named her Daisy on the way home. Noah said it was because of the little white patch on her chest that looked like one of the flowers Sarah used to plant in the backyard. Walter didn't argue. It took a wheelbarrow, a lot of awkward lifting, and several curious stares to get Daisy home. Walter didn't care about the looks. The only thing that mattered was the dog, and those boots. Noah wouldn't leave without them. "Daisy wants them," he said. "She's guarding them for him." Walter had seen his share of loyalty in war, in love, in death. But something about this dog clinging to those boots made his chest ache in a way he couldn't explain. They made a nest in the living room with old blankets and towels. Noah never left Daisy's side. She could barely drink, let alone eat, but she let the boy stroke her fur, whisper to her. When Walter went to check on them, he overheard Noah say, "If your person doesn't come back, that's okay. We'll be your family." That's when Walter knew this wasn't just about rescuing a stray. Something bigger was unfolding. If you believe animals can change lives, make sure to hit subscribe to Heroes for Animals. Every click helps us bring stories like Daisy's to light and reminds the world that some heroes have 4 legs. By morning, Daisy had worsened. Her breathing was shallow, her gums were pale. Walter checked for a pulse more than once. They rushed her to the nearest animal hospital. Noah insisted on riding in the back of the pickup with Daisy, holding her paw, talking to her the whole ride. "She's going to be okay," he said. "She has to be, I told her." At Valley Animal Hospital, Dr. Amanda Rivera took one look at Daisy and snapped into action. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, possible infection, but she's still hanging on. Walter was grateful until Dr. Rivera paused mid-exam, her hand hovering over Daisy's stomach. "That's odd," she murmured. "What is it?" Walter asked. "I need to run an ultrasound." They waited in silence. Walter couldn't stop thinking about the boots. Who left them? Why did she stay? Why guard them? 20 minutes later, Dr. Rivera returned. "She's going to make it," she said first. Walter exhaled. "But there's something else," she continued. "She's pregnant." Noah's eyes lit up. "Puppies. 4, maybe more. And that's likely why she's so weak." Every bit of nutrition she had went to the litter. Walter sat down hard. He had agreed to care for one dying dog. Now he was housing a mother. With a story, with a past. It didn't end there. She has a tattoo, Dr. Rivera added. She showed them the faint numbers on Daisy's inner ear. That's military, Walter said immediately. Or law enforcement. Dr. Rivera nodded. Exactly. We'll try to trace it. But it means Daisy wasn't just any dog. She was trained. Walter's stomach turned. Military dogs don't end up in parks by accident. Someone had left her, or worse. That night, after soup and sandwiches, Daisy curled up beside Noah on a blow-up mattress in the spare room. The boots sat nearby, and she wouldn't sleep unless she could see them. Do you think her person's still out there? Noah asked, eyes wide. Walter didn't answer right away. He looked at Daisy, worn broken, clinging to the scent of a man she had loved with her whole being. I don't know, he said truthfully, but we're going to find out. What Walter couldn't know not yet was that the man whose boots Daisy guarded had vanished 6 months ago, and that someone else had been searching for Daisy. Someone who didn't want her found. Because secrets don't stay buried forever, and sometimes the truth sleeps under a park bench, with her head on a pair of boots. The morning after the vet visit dawned brighter than expected, but Walter felt the weight of worry settle deeper into his bones. Daisy lay curled in the spare bedroom, the one that used to be Sarah's home office. Now it smelled of wet fur puppy formula and something else he couldn't quite name Hope. Noah sat cross-legged beside her, whispering a story he was making up as he went along. The boots were in the corner exactly where Daisy could see them, and every so often she'd flick her ears toward them, as if making sure they were still there. Walter stood in the doorway watching the boy and the dog like a man unsure if he was awake or dreaming. She's feeling warmer, Noah said, looking up. I think it's working. Walter nodded. She's still not out of the woods, buddy. But she's got a reason to fight now. The ultrasound had revealed at least 4 puppies. Daisy hadn't just survived her ordeal, she had shielded something precious the entire time. But now they needed answers. While Noah helped prepare Daisy's next meal, a mix of prescription wet food and boiled rice, Walter picked up the phone and called the only man he knew who might recognize a military K9 tattoo. Marcus Kane had been his battle buddy in Iraq. 15 years and a dozen scars ago, they'd shared tense foxholes and stories they'd never repeat. Now Marcus was retired and living in Oregon with a pack of rescue mutts and a motorcycle he refused to give up. Walt Marcus answered on the first ring. You don't call unless something's either broken or bleeding. Walter chuckled despite the tightness in his chest. I've got a situation. Found a dog. Shepherd. Tattooed. Pregnant. There was a pause, then Marcus's tone changed. You got a pen, read me the number. Walter recited it slowly. He heard rustling on the other end. That's old school format. Pre-closure. Marcus paused. You sure this dog's not aggressive? She barely had strength to drink water, let alone bite. My grandson found her sleeping on a pair of boots in the park. Another pause. Boots. Big ones, steel toe, like someone left them for her. There was silence on the line. Walt Marcus finally said, voice lower. Now don't give that number to anyone else. Let me call a couple people I trust. Quietly. Walter's stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying that dog might have come from Apex. Walter recognized the name. Everyone in military dog circles did. Apex K9 training, he asked. Yeah, place went dark 2 years ago. Official reason was funding. Unofficially, well, let's just say some of their inventory went missing before federal seizure. Dogs. Yeah, and not to nice people. If this shepherd's from Apex and someone wants her back, it won't be to throw her a baby shower. Walter didn't tell Noah everything. Not yet. The boy was 5. His heart already carried more weight than most adults could handle. Instead, they focused on Daisy's care, feeding her every few hours, massaging her belly gently when she got restless, keeping her warm and safe. Still, something had changed in Daisy. She was alert now, not just recovering but tracking, watching. At first, Walter chalked it up to maternal instinct, but by the 3rd time she perked her ears, before the doorbell even rang, he began to understand this dog hadn't just been trained. She'd been taught to guard, to protect, and to anticipate danger. 3 days later, the doorbell rang again. Walter had just sat down with a fresh cup of coffee. Noah was in the spare room reading Charlotte's Web aloud, and Daisy had been dozing, until she wasn't. Her ears shot up, her body tensed. Walter moved to the front door and peeked through the curtain. There was a man on the porch. Not the mailman, not a neighbor. This man wore a dark suit too formal for a small town like theirs, and he had the look of someone who expected doors to open when he knocked. "Can I help you?" Walter asked without opening the door. "Mr. Patterson," the man called out, his tone pleasant but too polished. "My name is David Cole. I'm here about a dog." Walter's blood chilled. Cole, the same last name Marcus had mentioned. "I'm not sure what you mean," Walter replied flatly. "I believe you recently came into possession of a German Shepherd," the man continued. "Female. Pregnant. That dog belongs to my family's training facility." "She doesn't belong to anyone anymore," Walter said, keeping his hand on the deadbolt. "On the contrary," Cole replied, still calm. "She was stolen. We have records. The dog and her unborn pups represent a significant financial investment. I'm authorized to offer you compensation for their return." Walter's pulse pounded. "She's not for sale," he said. Cole's voice dropped an octave. "Mr. Patterson, I'd prefer this not become complicated. Let's handle it like gentlemen." "You'll have to find another gentleman for that," Walter said. "Now get off my porch." He waited until the man walked back to his SUV, cool and collected, before he exhaled. When he turned around, Daisy was standing in the hallway. Behind her, Noah peeked out from the bedroom. "Who was that?" the boy asked. Walter looked at Daisy, who hadn't taken her eyes off the front door. "Someone who doesn't understand that family isn't for sale." That night, Walter didn't sleep. Neither did Daisy. She stayed by the door, ears twitching at every creak and gust of wind. At one point, Walter heard Noah whispering in his sleep. "She's ours now," the boy said. "We won't let them take her." The next morning, Marcus called again. "You were right to shut that guy down," he said. "David Cole's the nephew of Raymond Cole. Same family that ran Apex. Same shady operations. Word is he's been trying to rebuild quietly. Probably tracked Daisy through someone who spotted her." Walter rubbed his face. "What do I do?" "Go public," Marcus said. "He's operating in the shadows. Drag him into the light." Walter wasn't one for media, but there was one reporter he trusted, Jennifer Martinez, local journalist, the same woman who once covered Sarah's work at the animal shelter. He called her, told her everything. Well, most things. 2 hours later, Jennifer showed up with a photographer and a soft voice. "They don't look dangerous," she said, kneeling beside Daisy and Noah. "She's just a mama," Noah said, "trying to keep her babies safe." Jennifer's article ran the next morning with the headline, "Local boy saves military dog left to die now. They're a family." The photo showed Noah sitting cross-legged reading to Daisy, while the boots sat quietly in the background. The story spread like wildfire. People donated supplies, vets offered services, volunteers came to help prepare the nursery for the puppies. But most importantly, the attention kept David Cole away. That night, as Walter stood in the doorway of the spare room watching Daisy rest, with her head against Noah's lap, he felt something shift. This wasn't just about rescue anymore. It was about protecting the life Sarah would have protected. It was about finishing what Michael Santos, the man whose boots still stood in the corner, had started. The dog had chosen them, and now they had to choose to fight for her. Because Cole would be back, and next time he wouldn't be knocking. It was almost midnight when the sound shattered the stillness. Walter shot upright, in bed, his heart pounding. A sharp, unmistakable crash echoed from the kitchen. Glass. Not an accident. Not a dish falling or a cabinet slamming shut. This was something breaking from the outside. He reached for the baseball bat he'd kept by his nightstand ever since Cole showed up. His hands were steady, but his jaw clenched tight as he moved through the hallway. Noah was asleep in the next room, curled up on a mattress beside Daisy and the boots. The puppies hadn't arrived yet, but the room already felt like a nursery. Daisy didn't bark, but Walter could sense her alertness. She was awake, watching. In the kitchen, the window over the sink had shattered inward shards scattered across the tile. A rock wrapped in something lay at the center of the wreckage. Walter didn't touch it at first. He flipped on the porch light and scanned the yard through the jagged hole. Nothing but shadows and still trees. Then he picked up the rock. Wrapped tightly in rubber bands was a piece of paper torn from a legal pad. Neat, deliberate handwriting. All caps. "Last warning, the dog and puppies, or your safety, your choice." Walter's mouth went dry. He folded the note slowly and tucked it into his pocket. No panic. Not yet. First, protect the boy. He turned and nearly jumped when he saw Noah standing in the hallway, in his pajamas, bare feet on the cool hardwood floor, clutching a stuffed bear. "What was that noise?" Noah whispered. Walter smiled tightly. "Just a bird hit the window, buddy." Noah wasn't convinced, but he nodded. "Can I sleep in your room?" "Yeah," Walter said, lifting him up. "We'll check on Daisy first." In the spare room, Daisy stood between the puppy's blanket and the door, her muscles taut, ears pinned forward. She relaxed slightly when she saw Walter, then pressed her head against his thigh. She knows something's wrong, Noah said. Yeah, Walter whispered, she does. Walter didn't sleep the rest of the night. He sat in his recliner with the bat across his lap, staring at the front door, while Daisy kept watch in the hall. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind made him tighten his grip. He wasn't just scared, he was angry. This wasn't some local punk pulling a prank. This was a message, and it came from a man who wanted something he didn't deserve. David Cole wasn't just after Daisy, he was after her puppies, after money, after control. And Walter had something he didn't, a community that had started to care. That morning, after sending Noah out back to water the flowers, Walter called Marcus. He sent a message, Walter said flatly, through the kitchen window. There was a pause on the other end. Damn, Marcus muttered. He's escalating. Walter explained the note. He's testing your fear, Marcus said, trying to push you to panic. But now you've got the press watching. If he does something obvious, it's game over for him. Walter glanced toward the living room where the framed newspaper article still sat on the mantel. Jennifer Martinez's headline had gone viral. Local boy saves military dog left to die. It had bought them time, but not safety. By noon, Walter had installed new locks on every door and reinforced the window with plywood. He also contacted Deputy Sarah Chen from the county sheriff's office, someone Marcus vouched for. She came by that afternoon in plain clothes, no lights, no fuss. I've heard of Apex, she said after Walter explained everything. And of David Cole. He's slick, knows how to skirt just under the radar. But a rock through your window is something I can use. She photographed the note and collected the rock for prints, though she didn't sound hopeful. It's probably wiped, but it shows intent. Walter told her about the boots, about the tattoo, and about the puppies on the way. I want to help, she said, standing. But I need you to be smart, stay visible, keep the media talking. You've already put a crack in his armor. When she left, Walter felt a little stronger. Just a little. But Daisy never let her guard down. That evening, Walter walked out back to hang laundry on the line. The air was warm, peaceful. Noah's laughter drifted from the porch where he was showing Daisy how to roll a rubber ball. It felt almost normal, until Walter spotted the car. A black SUV parked just beyond the edge of the property, not moving, tinted windows. He turned slowly, picked up his phone, and called Marcus again. Walt, Marcus said after the first ring. He's watching. Time to make a move. Walter's next call was to Jennifer. I need another story, he told her, and this time I'm naming names. Jennifer arrived the next day with her photographer, Lisa, along with a security consultant from a local nonprofit that helps veterans with PTSD. He walked the property, took notes, and helped Walter set up a few outdoor motion sensors and a floodlight. Meanwhile, Jennifer sat with Noah and Daisy in the shade. You're being so brave, she told Noah gently. I just want Daisy to be safe, he replied. Walter stood behind her, arms crossed. She came here because someone tried to hurt her, he said. Now they want her back, and I'm not letting that happen. Jennifer listened carefully. What do you want people to know? She asked. Walter looked down at Daisy, then at the boots sitting in the sun. That sometimes family finds you, and once it does, you don't let go. Not for anything. The second article ran the next morning with a different tone. Threats made against family rescuing military dog. Sheriff investigating. Photos of the shattered glass. The rock. Daisy pressed protectively against Noah's side. It was no longer a heartwarming tale, it was a fight, and the town responded. People dropped off dog food. A retired Navy vet offered to take night watch shifts from his car outside their home. A group of high school students organized a donation drive for Daisy's vet bills. Local businesses began putting signs in their windows, "We stand with Daisy," and the SUV disappeared. But the quiet didn't last long. 2 nights later, at 3:07 a.m., Walter heard footsteps on gravel. He moved silently through the house. Daisy was already awake, positioned between the puppy's blanket and the hallway, lips drawn back in a silent warning. At the back window, Walter spotted a figure. A man, dark clothes, moving with calculated purpose. He wasn't just scouting. He was testing locks. Walter didn't hesitate. He threw the back door open, bat in hand, and stepped into the floodlight. I know who you are, Cole. The figure froze, then slowly turned. In the harsh glow of the sensor light, Walter could see his face. It was him. David Cole. Well, Mr. Patterson, Cole said calmly, as if they were meeting at a barbecue. Looks like you're awake. Walter didn't speak. You've made quite the fuss. The papers, the sheriff, the town bake sale, all for a dog. Walter stepped forward. She's not your dog. Cole smirked. No, she was Michael's. He was a good trainer. Too soft, though. couldn't handle the business side of things. Walter's chest tightened. You left her with his boots. Cole's expression flickered, just for a second. Regret or calculation? He left the boots, he said finally, before he ran off. He didn't run, Walter snapped. You made him disappear. Cole said nothing. Walter took another step. You're not getting her. Not now. Not ever. From the doorway, a low growl rumbled. Daisy. She stood, tall eyes locked on Cole, body tense. She remembers you, Walter said, and she's not afraid. Cole backed up. This isn't over, he said, slipping into the shadows. You can't watch them forever. Maybe not, Walter called after him, but I'll die trying. As Cole disappeared into the night, Daisy returned to her pups, circling them once before curling up beside them with her back to the door. Walter exhaled slowly and sat down on the porch steps. This was war, but they weren't alone anymore. The puppies came on a quiet Thursday night. Walter had been sitting at the kitchen table, sipping black coffee, his fourth cup, when Daisy let out a soft whine from the spare bedroom. Not a bark, not a growl. Something deeper, almost like a sigh. He stood up immediately. In the nursery, Noah was asleep in a sleeping bag beside Daisy, a flashlight still glowing faintly under his chin, his hand resting gently on her back. Daisy was curled up on the blanket nest. They'd made her breathing shallow, her body shifting. The moment had come. Buddy, Walter whispered, kneeling beside the boy, it's time. Noah sat bolt upright, blinking. The babies. Walter nodded. The vet had warned them. First litters were tricky. Timing was unpredictable. Daisy's body was still recovering from her ordeal, and her malnutrition had likely delayed labor. But now there was no more waiting. Walter called Dr. Rivera, and without hesitation she said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. But if a pup comes before, then you might need to help. He grabbed the clean towels they'd set aside for this very moment and a basin of warm water. Noah held Daisy's head, whispering softly to her, stroking her ears like Sarah used to do for scared animals at the shelter. You're doing great, he said. You're not alone. The first puppy came fast, a wet, dark bundle that didn't move at first. Walter had flashbacks of battlefield triage, only this time, the life in his hands was small and fragile. He rubbed the pup gently with a towel, cleared its mouth, whispered a quiet, "Come on, little one." Then the pup let out a squeaky breath. Daisy's nose twitched. She gave a low huff and began licking it slowly as instinct awakened inside her. The second came 10 minutes later, smaller than the first, and this time, Daisy didn't hesitate. She cleaned and nudged it to nurse. By the time Dr. Rivera arrived, Walter and Noah had helped deliver the third pup. This one was strong, crying, hungry. You're doing fine, she said, checking Daisy gently. 3 healthy puppies so far. Maybe one more to come. She was right. The fourth pup arrived after a short rest, tiny, pink-nosed and trembling. But as they gathered around in quiet celebration, the fifth came too. And it didn't cry. Walter's heart sank the second he saw it. Dr. Rivera tried. They all did. But the little body never took a breath. Noah watched with wide eyes, and when he realized the truth, he didn't say anything. He just laid his hand gently on the unmoving pup's back and whispered, I'm sorry you didn't get to stay. Then he walked over to Daisy and sat down beside her, silent. Walter felt something crack open in his chest. They buried the lost pup beneath the old oak tree the next morning. Just Walter, Noah, and Daisy. Noah insisted on finding a small stone to mark the spot. On it, he used a Sharpie to draw a heart and write one word, still. We didn't get to name them, he explained quietly, but they still mattered. Walter couldn't speak. He just placed his hand on the boy's shoulder and nodded. Back inside, the remaining 4 puppies were already nursing with surprising strength. Dr. Rivera checked them once more before leaving. Daisy's doing remarkably well, she said. And you two, you did everything right. Walter walked her to her car. She's not just any dog, he said. No, Rivera agreed. She's someone's heartbreak. That afternoon, Walter called Jennifer Martinez again. Not for a new article, just to thank her. Your stories gave us a shield, he told her. People are watching now. Cole can't move in the dark anymore. Jennifer's voice was warm. Walter, people love this story because it reminds them that not everything's broken, that sometimes love wins. He wasn't sure if that was true yet, but he wanted to believe it. As the days passed, the house fell into a rhythm. Daisy slept with her pups, rousing only to eat and go outside briefly. Noah became the official puppy patrol, tracking their weight with Walter's kitchen scale and giving them nicknames. On Sunday morning, he lined them up on a blanket and pointed one by one. This one, he said, stroking the biggest pup, is Hero, because he cried first. Walter smiled. Makes sense. This one, he continued, pointing to the run, is Hope. 'Cause we had to hope really hard he'd be okay. And her, he said, touching the soft brown one curled beside Daisy, is Faith. That's what Mom always said we needed when stuff was hard. Walter swallowed. What about the last one? Noah paused. That's Grace, because Daisy gave her life even when she had nothing left. Walter sat beside him, heart heavy with memory. He could almost see Sarah in the room, kneeling beside the boy, smiling. Those are good names, Walter said. Strong ones. They're not just names, Noah replied. They're promises. That night, as they sat on the back porch watching the sunset, Walter noticed something else. Daisy wasn't guarding the boots anymore. She still kept them nearby, but she no longer hovered, no longer curled up beside them. Instead, she laid in the middle of the nursery, surrounded by her puppies. She had moved on from memory to motherhood. And Walter understood something important. Daisy had finally started to trust the future. But the past wasn't done with them yet. 2 days later, Walter's phone rang. It was Detective Chen from the sheriff's department. I need to see you, she said. I've got information. She came over that evening with another folder, a stern expression and urgency in her tone. We traced the tattoo, she said, placing a photo on the kitchen table. Walter squinted. The image showed a military training yard, men in uniform, dogs lined up in a row. One of them, barely visible behind the others, had a white patch on her chest. That's her, he said. Her name was listed as Esperanza, Spanish for hope. She was part of a batch of dogs trained for private security, not military contracted. Walter stared at the photo, and the man who trained her. Detective Chen hesitated, then pulled out another photo. It was a headshot. Younger man, dark hair, kind eyes. Michael Santos. Walter blinked. The boots. Chen nodded. He disappeared 6 months ago, supposed to testify against Raymond Cole, David's uncle, about illegal sales abuse and unlicensed dogs being sold to criminal networks. Disappeared. No trace. His car was found near the border. That was it. Noah, who had been listening from the hallway, stepped into the kitchen. But he loved Daisy, he said. He wouldn't leave her. Chen knelt. You're probably right, sweetheart. He did love her, which is why she waited. She stood again. And that means Daisy is more than evidence. She's a witness and a target. Walter felt the old rage return. The war veteran in him stirred. What do we do now? You keep her safe. You keep those puppies safe. And you don't open that door unless it's someone you trust. She handed him a card. And if anything feels wrong, you call me. Walter nodded. Outside, the wind shifted. Somewhere in town, David Cole was still watching. But this time, he wouldn't be coming for a nameless dog. He'd be coming for Esperanza, the dog that knew too much, had survived too long, and was no longer alone. For 3 nights straight, Walter slept in his recliner, bat across his lap phone on his chest, and Daisy resting silently at his feet like an old soldier returned to duty. The puppies, Hero, Hope, Faith, and Grace, were healthy, gaining weight, their eyes just beginning to open. Noah charted their every milestone on a poster board hung on the fridge. Hero's ears are twitching, he'd shout from the spare room. Or Hope yawned so big I could see all the way down her throat. But the light in the boy's eyes had dulled just slightly. He was still smiling, still playing, still telling bedtime stories to Daisy and her pups. But Walter saw the way he'd pause when headlights passed the house too slowly, the way he jumped when a car door slammed too hard outside. He was 5 years old and already learning what it meant to feel watched. Walter hated that. Detective Chen had promised to alert the feds about Daisy's connection to Michael Santos, but she'd warned Walter plainly. These things take time. We need airtight evidence. Until then, stay visible, stay cautious, and don't engage Cole unless we're there. Walter agreed, out loud. But deep down, he knew that if Cole came back, law or no law, he'd face him again. And this time, he wouldn't wait for backup. It was just past 2 a.m. on the 4th night when Daisy stirred beside the recliner and let out a low, guttural growl. Not loud, not frantic, but cold, focused. Walter froze. The motion light outside hadn't triggered. The house was still, but Daisy's ears were sharp, too sharp to ignore. He slid the bat into his hand and moved to the back window. Through a narrow sliver in the curtain, he spotted movement. A man walking the side of the house. He wasn't in a suit this time. Dark hoodie, gloves, purposeful. Walter's grip tightened. He tapped the emergency dial on his phone, Detective Chen's direct number, and slid it into his pocket. Then he slipped to the hallway and whispered, Noah, stay with the puppies. Noah groggy sat up. What's wrong? Nothing, buddy, just to stay put. But Daisy wasn't staying. She stood beside Walter, low and quiet, lips curled but tail low. No barking, no lunging, just a trained response. She remembered. She knew. And that terrified Walter more than anything. Walter unlocked the back door and stepped outside into the moonlight, the bat held at his side like an old habit. His voice was calm but firm. "Cole." The man froze, then straightened slowly like he had all the time in the world. "I told you I'd be back," Cole said, stepping into the light. "No surprise there. She's mine. She's nobody's property." "You think the press can save you?" Cole sneered. "You think your little small-town hero act will hold up when this goes to court?" "She's not evidence anymore," Walter said, voice hard. "She's family, and she's not going anywhere." Cole's tone sharpened. "You're a stubborn old man, Patterson." "You're damn right I am." Cole reached into his pocket, and for one terrifying second, Walter thought it was a weapon. But it wasn't. He pulled out a set of photos. 5 German Shepherds. One had a white patch on her chest. They were all part of the same unit, he said. Michael trained them. "You think Daisy's special? You think she was the only one he cared about?" Walter didn't move. "She's the last one," Cole said. "The others are gone, sold, used, dead. You really want her pups to grow up just like her hunted?" Walter didn't respond. "She's not a mother. She's a machine. She was trained to kill. You're sheltering a loaded gun." At that moment, Daisy stepped out beside Walter, positioning herself between the two men. And Cole smiled. "She chose me once," he said softly, "and she'll do it again." Walter raised the bat. "She made her choice the second she curled up next to my grandson, with your lies still hanging in the air. You don't get to rewrite that." For the first time, Cole's smile slipped. Then he turned and walked away. No threats, no raised voice. But Walter knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. When the police arrived 4 minutes after Walter hit send on the emergency ping, Cole was gone. No sign of him. No car, no footprints. Nothing. But the next morning, Jennifer Martinez called. "I got a tip from an anonymous source," she said. "You might want to see this." The story dropped online at noon. "Private contractor linked to missing K9 trainer. Local dog may hold answers." Walter's name wasn't in it. Neither was Daisy's. But the article connected Michael Santos to Apex, hinted at Cole's involvement, and asked why the only remaining dog from the unit had ended up in a public park next to a pair of boots. That was enough. The story blew up. By evening, major news stations were calling. Walter didn't answer. He just sat on the porch while Noah napped on a blanket with the puppies and Daisy dozed nearby. They had become a symbol, and that meant they were in danger. 2 days later, Walter's phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Mr. Patterson," a woman's voice said gently. "My name is Maria Santos. I believe you have something that belonged to my husband." Walter's heart nearly stopped. Maria arrived the next day, small woman, Hispanic, mid-40s, soft eyes but steel behind them. When she stepped into the living room and saw the boots, she froze. Then Daisy stood up, walked over, and pressed her head into Maria's hands like she'd been waiting her whole life for that moment. Maria sank to her knees. She was his favorite, she whispered. He called her Esperanza, Spanish for hope, said she was too gentle for the work, said she reminded him what he was fighting for. Walter sat down beside her. We didn't know her name, but Noah picked the same one for her pup. Maria cried then. Not loud, not messy, just quietly like someone who had been waiting too long to feel anything at all. "I never got to bury him," she said. "No body, no truth, just silence. We think Cole made him disappear before he could testify." Maria nodded slowly. He was going to run. He left the boots by the door, said if something happened, she'd know he didn't forget her. She waited with them, Walter said, until Noah found her. Maria looked at the boy who had just come in carrying a bowl of kibble. "You're Noah." He nodded. "You saved her." He shook his head. "She saved me too." That evening, they held a memorial under the oak tree, a real one this time. Walter carved Michael's name into the trunk with his pocket knife. Maria placed a photo of her husband beside the boots, and Noah knelt beside Daisy and whispered something only she heard. Afterward, as the sun dipped behind the house, Maria stood beside Walter and said, "I can take her, if that's safer." But Daisy had already chosen. She lay down beside the puppies, then lifted her head and stared at Noah. Maria smiled. "Guess she's made that clear." The next morning, a knock came at the door. It wasn't Cole. It was Detective Chen with a warrant in her hand and backup behind her. Cole was caught trying to cross the Canadian border, she said, with 2 unlicensed K9s in his vehicle. Trafficking? He's going away for a long time. Walter's legs gave out. He sat hard in the chair by the window and laughed deep from his belly. And when he looked over at Daisy lying peacefully with her pups beside her, he whispered, "You did it, girl." She thumped her tail once against the floor. Just once, but it said everything. Spring melted slowly into early summer, And for the first time in a long time, the Patterson home didn't feel like a place clinging to grief. It felt like life was blooming. The puppies Hero, Hope, Faith, and Grace were 5 weeks old now, wide-eyed and wobbling through the kitchen like they owned it. Noah laughed constantly. He'd gone from a boy who barely spoke after his mother died to a chatterbox who narrated everything the puppies did like he was calling a baseball game. Hero's charging the water bowl like a linebacker, and Grace just stole my sock again. Grandpa, they're wild. Walter watched it all from his armchair, smiling behind his coffee cup, grateful for every sound. Daisy lay nearby, alert but peaceful, her body finally recovering, her eyes no longer filled with pain or fear, but watchfulness, loyalty, contentment. She still kept the boots close, but more like a keepsake now, a tribute. They'd buried her ghosts. And with Cole in federal custody, the shadow he cast had finally lifted. But as Walter learned long ago, peace wasn't something you sat on. It was something you shared. 3 weeks after Cole's arrest, Jennifer Martinez returned for a final interview. She stepped into the living room, looked around at the controlled chaos of 4 tumbling puppies and a 5-year-old in dinosaur pajamas, and just grinned. "So this is the recovery unit," she joked. Walter shook her hand, more like the command center. They sat at the kitchen table while Noah played tug-of-war with Hero using a rolled-up sock. "How are you holding up?" she asked. Walter took a slow sip of coffee, tired, happy, still confused about how this all happened. Jennifer tilted her head. "You think Daisy was meant to find you?" He didn't answer right away. He looked out the window toward the backyard where Michael Santos's boots sat beneath the oak tree. A little plaque they'd added read, "She didn't wear boots, but she filled them." Noah had come up with it himself. "I think she found us," Walter finally said, "because she needed a second chance. And maybe so did we." The article went live that weekend with the headline, "She Waited with the Boots, How One Dog Brought a Family Back to Life." The story detailed everything: Michael Santos Daisy's recovery, the community support, and Cole's federal indictment. It went viral within hours. Suddenly, donations started rolling in again, not just to the local animal shelter, but to the Veterans Therapy Program. Marcus worked with the same one that eventually helped Walter install a proper backyard fence and a secure play space for the pups. The sheriff's department sent Walter an official commendation for helping disrupt an illegal canine trafficking operation. But it was Noah who received the real attention. Letters arrived from across the country. Children wrote to say they loved animals too. A retired Marine from South Carolina sent him a stuffed shepherd in Daisy's image. A school in Oregon dedicated a library book nook in honor of Noah and Daisy. And still, amidst all the buzz, Walter made one quiet decision. The puppies needed homes, but not just any homes. Faith was the first to go to a young family who had recently lost their Labrador to old age. They had 2 kids and a backyard the size of a football field. They came by twice a week for bonding visits before taking her home. Then Grace was adopted by an elderly woman who had read about Daisy in the paper and cried for a full 20 minutes during her first visit. She didn't say much, but Daisy had licked her hand, and Grace curled up in her lap like she belonged there. Hero went to a retired police officer and his wife who worked with therapy dogs for veterans. Walter liked that. It felt right. Hero was born brave. That left Hope, the smallest, the softest, the one who had almost died. One morning while Walter stood on the back porch with his second cup of coffee, Maria Santos came walking up the path. She visited often now, had become part of their odd, stitched-together little family. Hope ran straight to her tail wagging. Daisy followed at a slower pace, bumping her head against Maria's knee gently. "You still thinking about it?" Walter asked. Maria smiled. "Every day." "You'd be a good match," he said. "But only if you're sure." She knelt and picked up the little shepherd pup, holding her close. "I've already lost one piece of Michael," she whispered. "I think I'm ready to carry another." So Hope went home with her. And for the first time since she buried her husband's boots, Maria Santos didn't walk away alone. That night, Noah curled up beside Daisy on the living room rug, their heads side by side. The house felt bigger now with the puppies gone, but not emptier. Just steady. "Do you miss them?" Noah asked. Daisy let out a soft exhale and rested her head against his chest. "I miss them too," Noah said, "but they're okay." Walter sat on the couch watching them, feeling the quiet shift in the room. It wasn't sadness. It was peace. The following week, Walter received a certified letter in the mail. It was from the Department of Defense. Inside was an official certificate stamped and signed, formally transferring ownership of Esperanza Daisy to the Patterson family. Alongside it was a short letter from the head of K9 operations. Dogs like Esperanza serve with loyalty. They deserve the same in return. Thank you for giving her a new mission. Walter held the paper in his hands for a long time. Then he placed it in a frame and hung it over the fireplace next to a picture of Sarah smiling in a field of flowers. Months passed. Summer rolled into fall. Leaves crunched beneath Noah's boots as he ran through the backyard with Daisy trailing behind him like a shadow. She was stronger now, sleek and alert, but gentle. Still protective, still watchful, but finally safe. Walter watched them from the porch, rocking slowly, a mug of cider warming his hands. "You look happy," Grandpa Noah said one afternoon as he flopped down beside him. "I am," Walter said, "because Daisy's better. Because you're better." Noah thought about that. "I think Mom would like it here," he said softly. Walter's throat tightened. She'd love it, and she'd be really proud of Daisy. He looked at his grandson, then at the shepherd lying at their feet. "She'd be proud of you too, buddy." On the one-year anniversary of the day they found Daisy under the park bench, Walter and Noah returned to Jefferson Park with a bouquet of daisies in a small wooden box. They placed both at the foot of the same bench under the same oak tree where it all began. The box contained a collar with a faded name tag, a photo of Michael Santos in uniform, and the note Noah had written the day they buried the unnamed puppy, "Still loved. Still here." Daisy stood beside them the whole time silent, and as they walked away she turned back just for a second, then followed them home. Because some boots never stop walking beside you, even when they're no longer there to fill. By late October, the air in Millfield carried the scent of leaves, wood smoke, and something else, something quieter, older. The kind of stillness that comes after a storm when the ground is soft and the sky seems to have finally exhaled. Walter Patterson sat on the back porch wrapped in an old Army surplus jacket, nursing a warm mug of coffee and watching Daisy patrol the yard. She didn't rush. She didn't bark. She simply moved through the space like it belonged to her, because now it did. Noah sat cross-legged nearby, coloring a picture of the 4 puppies he still talked about like they'd never left. Hope, Faith, Grace, and Hero had grown into small legends in town. The families who adopted them sent regular photos and updates. Hope now ran beside Maria Santos every morning on quiet trails outside of Austin. Hero had begun service training with a wounded vet, and Faith had recently learned to open the fridge when her new owner's arthritis flared. Walter couldn't explain how a single moment in a rainy park had unraveled so much pain and stitched something new in its place. "You think Daisy remembers where she came from?" Noah asked suddenly, not looking up from his drawing. Walter paused. "I think she remembers who she belongs to now." After the article went national, a quiet ripple of support followed. A few veterans reached out through Marcus's program, wanting to know how to adopt retired K9s. A documentary crew emailed with interest in filming their story. Even the Department of Defense sent a formal thank you gift, a polished plaque bearing Daisy's service number, and a simple engraving. "To those who protect us, may we always protect them." Walter hung it in the living room beside Sarah's diploma from veterinary tech school. Life didn't become perfect, but it was fuller, richer, less haunted, and yet something still felt unfinished. One windy morning in November, a plain manila envelope arrived at their mailbox. No return address, just their names typed. Inside were 2 things: a court document listing State of Texas versus David Cole as the primary heading, and a flash drive. Walter called Detective Chen first. She sounded immediately alert. "I didn't send it," she said. "What's on the drive?" "I haven't looked. Wait for me." She arrived an hour later with her partner, Detective Rodriguez, who had been helping with the Apex fallout. They sat in Walter's kitchen, Daisy curled beneath the table. Noah at school, the flash drive plugged into an old laptop Walter barely remembered how to use. There were 3 files. One was a recorded interview, grainy video, time-stamped 6 months before Daisy was found. It was Michael Santos speaking directly to the camera. "My name is Michael Santos. If you're watching this, I'm either missing or dead." Walter's throat went dry. Michael continued, "I worked for Apex K9 as a trainer for 4 years. I believed in the mission until I saw what they were really doing. Selling dogs trained for security and combat to private buyers. No vetting, no oversight." He shifted in the frame, looking down, then back up. "There's one dog I couldn't let go. Esperanza. Smartest one I ever worked with. She wasn't just loyal, she was human. She knew when someone was in pain, knew how to protect not just on command but from the heart. I left her with the boots. She knew they were mine. I hoped they'd comfort her." He swallowed hard. "I don't know who's watching this, but if she found you, take care of her. She doesn't just deserve it, she's earned it." Walter looked up. No one spoke. Detective Chen finally said, "This is enough to break the case wide open." Rodriguez nodded. "The court documents. Those are whistleblower files, probably uploaded by someone on the inside. Whoever sent this wanted the truth out." Walter leaned back, heart pounding. "She waited with those boots for months," he whispered. "And she never gave up." Chen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Neither did you." That evening, Walter sat down with Noah and played the video. He explained it as gently as he could, pausing where needed, answering questions softly. By the time it ended, Noah was quiet, hugging Daisy tightly around her neck. "He didn't get to come back," he said, eyes damp, "but he found a way to help her anyway." Walter nodded. "That's what real love does, it finds a way." Noah was quiet a long time. Then he walked to the little memorial under the oak tree, and added a new photo, a printed still from the video. Michael Santos caught mid-sentence, wearing a calm face that somehow said everything. Above it, Noah had written in marker, "You were her person, but she found more." Winter came softly to Millfield. Snow fell in delicate flurries that melted by noon. The town's holiday lights flickered along Main Street. Daisy's fur thickened for the cold, and she took to sitting by the window, like a sentinel watching the wind chase leaves across the porch. Walter taught Noah how to make hot cocoa the right way, with a pinch of salt and a marshmallow count based on how many puppies were born. 4. Always 4. On Christmas Eve, a knock came at the door. It was Maria. She stood with Hope in her arms, bundled in a red ribbon. "We were in town," she said, smiling, "and someone wanted to visit." Noah lit up. "Hope." Daisy bounded over, nuzzling the pup with motherly joy, her tail sweeping the air like a flag. They spent the evening together, telling stories, sharing cookies, and watching It's a Wonderful Life until Maria had to drive back. Before she left, she turned to Walter. "You ever think about doing something with all of this?" He blinked. "With what?" "With everything Daisy went through. Everything you built." Walter chuckled. "I'm not much of a crusader." Maria gave him a look. "You don't need to be. You just need to keep the door open. There are more dogs like her out there." 3 weeks later, the idea became real. Walter, with help from Marcus and support from the town, founded Boots and Paws, a nonprofit dedicated to fostering retired service dogs and reuniting them with safe civilian homes. Noah designed the logo, a boot with a paw print inside it. They started small, 1 dog, then 2. They partnered with local shelters, schools, and veteran groups. And Daisy She became the program's official ambassador, featured on every flyer and banner. She'd gone from forgotten stray to national symbol, and she never once stopped guarding her new family. One warm afternoon in April, Walter stood beneath the oak tree, now green with fresh buds, and looked down at the memorial stone again. It no longer made him sad. It reminded him that stories don't end where they break. They pick up in new hands, new hearts. Behind him, Noah's voice rang out, "Daisy, catch." The shepherd turned, bounded across the yard, and leapt after a red frisbee. And as Walter watched them, boy and dog's shadow and light heartbreak and healing, he finally understood. They hadn't just saved a dog. They'd inherited a legacy. 1 bark, 1 step, 1 small, stubborn act of love at a time. It had been exactly 1 year since Daisy was found under that park bench, curled around a pair of old work boots, like they were the last pieces of a broken world. Now the bench had a small plaque attached to it. Walter hadn't wanted anything flashy, just the truth. Engraved into the brass plate were 9 simple words. She waited with love, and love came back. Jefferson Park had changed in subtle ways. More people brought their dogs now. A new water bowl had been installed beneath the bench. Kids stopped and stared at the plaque, and sometimes, without really knowing why, sat quietly beside it for a moment before running off to play. Walter stood near the tree with Noah and Daisy, both of them a little taller, a little stronger, a little wiser than they'd been a year ago. The boots were still part of their lives, kept in a glass shadow box mounted on the living room wall next to Sarah's photo, and now a portrait of Michael Santos in uniform. "Do you think Daisy remembers this place?" Noah asked, petting her gently behind the ears. Walter watched as Daisy circled the bench once, then lay down beside it with a soft sigh. "I think she remembers everything that matters." The Boots and Paws initiative had grown faster than anyone expected. What began as a local foster program turned into a regional network. They had rescued 21 dogs in their first year, reuniting some with former handlers and placing others with families who needed more than just a pet. They needed a partner. Marcus Kane ran training clinics twice a month. Maria Santos led therapy outreach in schools. And Walter, who never planned on becoming anything more than a quiet grandfather, somehow found himself writing newsletters, giving interviews, and once delivering a speech at a national veterans conference. He opened that talk with the same line every time. We thought we were rescuing a dog, but really she rescued us first. One rainy Tuesday morning, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address, just a military base postmark in the top corner. Walter opened it slowly. Mr. Patterson, I knew Michael. We trained together in Georgia. I didn't know what happened to him after he left Apex. But I saw your story. I saw Daisy's eyes in that photo. I know those eyes. He used to say she was the one who got away with his heart. Thank you for giving her the life he wanted for her, and for keeping his boots beside her until she was ready to stand on her own again. Sincerely, Staff Sergeant James Harper read. Walter folded the letter carefully and placed it in the box under the boots next to the tag that still read Esperanza. Spring turned to summer again, and Daisy continued to thrive. She wasn't young anymore, but she moved with purpose. Her favorite spot was still the corner of the porch where she could see both the yard and the road, watching over everyone she cared about, like it was her lifelong job. She and Noah were inseparable. They played read books, even napped together on lazy afternoons. She responded to his voice faster than anyone else's. Walter often joked that she didn't need training, she just needed Noah to speak. Then came the day that changed everything again. Walter was in the kitchen making lunch when he heard a loud, sharp bark. Not a playful one, not a greeting, a warning. He dropped the bread knife and rushed outside. Noah stood frozen on the sidewalk inches from the street where a delivery truck had rolled onto the curb brakes, screeching, the driver shouting. And between the boy and the truck was Daisy. She had lunged, placing herself in front of Noah just as the vehicle veered too close. The driver jumped out, apologizing over and over. My brakes gave out. I swear I wasn't speeding your dog. She saved him. Walter couldn't speak. Noah was crying, clutching Daisy, who was shaken but unhurt. It was over in seconds, but the memory would last forever. That night, after the house was quiet, Walter sat on the edge of Noah's bed and listened. I didn't see it coming, Noah whispered, but she did. Walter brushed the hair from the boy's forehead. She always does. I don't think she's just a dog, Grandpa. Walter smiled. I don't think so either. They sat in silence for a while before Noah asked, do you think Michael knows? Walter looked out the window at the stars and nodded. I think he knows. I think he knew the second she found us. Later that week, they held a celebration at the Town Park Part fundraiser, Part 1-year anniversary. Families came with their dogs, children played with balloons and face paint, and someone brought a cake shaped like a German shepherd. Walter gave another short speech. I didn't want to become the face of anything he said. But then I met Daisy. And when a dog like that trusts you, you don't hide from the world. You step up. He pointed to Noah, who was passing out boots and paws stickers to kids. He stepped up too. The crowd clapped. And to Michael Santos, wherever you are, Walter added, voice tight, thank you for training the dog that trained all of us. The rest of that summer passed gently. There were no more threats, no more secrets. Just the rhythm of a new life, a quieter, better one. Noah started kindergarten that fall. On the first day, he insisted on bringing a photo of Daisy for his cubby and told his teacher, she's my hero, and also my best friend. Daisy waited by the door every afternoon at 3:15, ears perked, tail thumping, the moment the school bus pulled up. Walter joined her sometimes, coffee in hand, watching the same road, knowing that life, like loyalty, comes full circle if you're patient enough. On the final night of summer, they sat on the porch again. Walter, Noah, and Daisy watching the sun sink low behind the oak tree, which now had a tiny bench built beneath it with two names etched into the side, Sarah Patterson and Michael Santos. I think the world's better because Daisy barked that day, Noah said suddenly. Walter smiled. Me too. She didn't know why. She just knew something was wrong. That's how heroes work, Walter replied. They don't wait for permission. They sat a little longer until the stars came out. And when Walter finally stood to go inside, he turned and said, come on, girl, there's still work to do. Because Daisy, like Michael, never really stopped serving. She just found a new way to protect. A quieter war, a softer battlefield, but one just as important. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. Love doesn't always look like a parade or a badge or a medal. Sometimes it looks like a dog who refuses to leave your side, or a boy who sees past fear, or a pair of boots under a bench, waiting to be filled. Thank you for following this story all the way through. If it touched you, inspired you, or reminded you of a special dog family member or second chance in your life, please share it. Now we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had an animal change your life in an unexpected way? Let us know in the comments, and as always, stay kind, stay brave, and never underestimate the quiet heroes with 4 legs and unwavering hearts.